Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Well, King Brian Boru was the High King of Ireland from 1002 to 1014, and he is still celebrated to this day for basically saving Ireland from the Vikings. He was great in battle, and the story I'm telling you today, maybe maybe a little known story about King Brian Boru. It was collected by Doreen McBride. The thing is that King Brian Boru was having a really hard time. Being the High King of Ireland is it's a pretty stressful job. I mean, he had a lot on his plate. You could say he was downright frazzled. And so one morning he woke up and he turned to his wife, Queenie. Well, she was a high queen of Ireland, right? So he called her Queenie, but he told Queenie that he was stressed out. He was frazzled. He was overwhelmed. And really, right then, all he wanted to do was stay in bed. Well, she was pretty understanding. And so she told him she knew that his job was no picnic lately. And so he could go ahead. She let him have a little lie in and she went downstairs to make him a breakfast. She went down to make breakfast. She got her frying pan. She put in the lard. Remember when we used to cook with lard? Or remember hearing about it? Yeah. So she started cooking bacon and sausage and eggs, pancakes. She threw in some potatoes. She started making some Irish soda bread, and then she started making some tea cakes. Then she started making some potato bread. And oh, yeah, she also threw in some mushrooms. King Brian had a pretty good appetite. So she's cooking all this. In the meantime, King Brian is upstairs just enjoying being in the bed and smelling all that great food coming up and kind of taking it easy. And finally, when Queenie was done, she hollered up the stairs. It was time for him to come down for breakfast. And he quickly threw off the covers. And that's when it happened. His big toe on the right foot spoke. Well, it's a fine day, isn't it? Before he could even react to it, the toe on the left foot, that big toe, said, Oh, yes, it is. Well, very quickly, Brian threw the covers back over his toes. And then he began to panic. He was like, he was stressed out. He was frazzled. He was really struggling with this job. It was really a lot of pressure. But he didn't realize maybe he was going crazy. Maybe he was even going bonkers because he thought he heard his toes talking to him. And he began to panic that maybe he couldn't hold down this job. Maybe he'd have to abdicate. Perish the thought. Abdicate. So he kind of pulled himself together and he started doing affirmations. I am the High King of Ireland. I will be brave. I will act with dignity. And then he reached up to adjust his crown. You thought I was going to say halo, didn't you? No. He wore a crown to bed at night. King Brian, between the two of us, he was just a little bit full of himself. Anyway, after he got his crown all settled, he threw the covers back off his feet very bravely. And once again, the big toe on his right foot said, Well, we were talking to you, Brian. And the other toe said, Exactly, we were. Brian glowered at them with his meanest glower, and he said, I heard you. Why are you talking? Well, the right big toe said, We are sick and tired. We're fed up. And the big toe on the left foot said, That's right. We are fed up. We're fed up. They both started hollering at him. We're fed up. Your socks are too smelly and we're sick of it. We want out. We want you to take us off and we want to go home now. My goodness. First of all, this was very insulting. King Brian looked at them. He said, My socks are not smelly. I want you to know that I take a bath once a year. Well, that didn't seem to impress them one bit. So the big toe on the right side said, "That doesn't matter at all. Your socks are smelly. We're fed up and we want to go home." And the big toe on the left foot said, "That's right. We want to go home. We want to go home. Take us off." And King Brian said, "You can't come off my feet. Besides, I need you." "Well," said the toe on the right foot, "you don't know very much. I have 5 toes in all on this foot." And the one on the left side said, "And I have 5 toes on this foot." And the two of them together said, "We have 10 toes. King Brian, you're just greedy. 10 toes is a lot of toes. 10 toes is a lot of toes. Why do you care? If you got rid of 2 of them, you wouldn't even notice it." Well, King Brian was taken aback by all this. And then the right big toe said, "Besides, you don't even know anything. Why, all you have to do is pop us right off while we come off just like Legos. You take us off, you can put us back on. It's easy." Then King Brian started thinking. Now, this took a little bit of time because you see, while King Brian was pretty fast in battle, he was not fast at thinking. That took a little more time. But as he sat there thinking and thinking, he realized that, you know how at night sometimes you want to get up and go to the bathroom? Well, he realized that he would get up and go to the bathroom, and almost every time he would run into some piece of furniture with his big toe, with one of his big toes, and it hurt. And then he realized, you know, he liked to dance a jig with Queenie, but the problem was that she would go leaping up into the air, and she wore these big green wellies, you know. She would come down right on his toe, and it hurt. And this is where I need to tell you something. You see, Queenie, because she was the High Queen of Ireland, she had to keep up appearances. And in order for everyone to see that the kingdom was doing well, the royals had to eat well. And so she ate well. And as a result, Queenie was not really a little lady. She was a large lady. And so when she leaped up in the air, when she was dancing, she came down on his toe, boom, it really did hurt. And that's when King Brian started thinking maybe he'd be better off without the 2 toes. You know, it was almost like the 2 toes hurt him, because the minute he said that, they started cheering him on. "Come on, Brian, pull us off. Pull us off, Brian. Come on, Brian. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, Brian. Pull us off. We want to go home. Come on, Brian. Take us off. We want to go home." Well, pretty soon he just reached down and pop, pop. Do you know those toes came right off him just like Legos? And they jumped out of his hands onto the floor, and they grew little tiny arms and little tiny legs, and they went running off out the door shouting, "Thank you, Brian. Thanks, Buckets, Brian." And off they went. Well, he thought maybe he was better off without him anyway. And then Queenie called up, was he ever coming to get the breakfast? So King Brian jumped out of bed thinking he was going to go to the door. And you know what happened? Splat. He fell right on his face. He had no big toes to balance him. Now he knew he had made a huge mistake, and his crown had come off his head when he fell, and it went clattering across the floor. And Queenie heard that and thought, what in the world? She went running up the stairs to find out what had happened, and there lay King Brian on his face on the floor, crown on the floor, saying, "Oh, I have made a terrible mistake. I've lost my toes, Queenie. Now I'll never walk. I'll never be able to go to battle again. Queenie, I've lost my toes." Well, Queenie started laughing. She said, "No, Brian, loses their toes, you can't have lost your toes. And she was laughing. And then she looked at his toes and saw that he had only four toes on his right foot and four toes on his left foot. And she said, "Oh, where have the toes gone?" So Brian told her he didn't know, but they had run out the door. So Queenie grabbed his crown, handed it to him, and said she was going to find them and bring them back. She went down the stairs. She went across the courtyard. She went over the drawbridge. She went on the road. She headed off down the road. But she knew she could not keep up with them because, as I told you, she was rather large and she was also not a fast runner. But she was lucky because she caught up with him because you're not going to believe this, but those toes had stopped in the middle of the road and they were flat out beating the pulp out of each other. I mean, they were sucking each other one after the other, and they were hollering. It turns out they had become confused about which one was the right toe and which one was the left toe. So the right toe was saying, "I'm the right toe." And he was decking the other one. And then the left toe said, "No, you're not. I'm the right toe." And he decked the other one. And they were just, it was punch after punch and blow after blow. It was terrible. They were beating the melt out of each other. Well, thank goodness for that. It happened a little bit longer so that Queenie could think, because she knew she couldn't outrun them. And, if they took off and went through the cornfield, she'd never catch up with them. So she had to be crafty. But Queenie was crafty. She said, "My goodness, Toes, what are you doing in the middle of the road fighting like this?" And they told her that they didn't know which one was the right toe and which one was the left toe. And she said, "Well, you'll never find out fighting like this. Why, the only way for you to ever find out is to go back to the castle and ask King Brian. He's a good fella. He's a decent fella. He'll tell you which one is which." And the toes stopped fighting and they said, "Good idea." And off they went. They went back down the road. They went over the drawbridge and through the courtyard. They went into the house. They headed up the steps. And as they did, heading up the steps into the bedroom, they said, "Brian, Brian, Brian." They said, "Brian, which one of us is the right toe? Which one of us is the left toe?" Well, Brian, the minute he saw them, he sat up and he said, "I can't see very well now. You'll have to come a little bit closer." And the minute they got closer, well, he scooped them right up. He popped the right toe on the right foot. He popped the left toe on the left foot. And the toes said, "Oh, thank you, Brian. Thank you. Now we know which is which and we're ready to go home. Take us back off again and we'll go." But Brian shook his head. "Oh, no," he said. "Oh, no, you're staying where you are. I need you. Besides," he said, "I have decided that from now on, I'll take 2 baths a year." Before they could start hollering, he had them sock on each foot. And I want you to know, from that day till the day he died in April 2014, he slept with his socks on, because that was the only way the High King of Ireland was ever going to have any peace.